of his chief of staff, Andrei Yermak, following an anti-corruption raid. He's called for national unity, warning the country risks losing itself. According to reports, Ukrainian negotiators will travel to the United States this weekend for talks on Washington's plans to end the war. The delegation plans to meet U.S. officials, possibly in Florida. Russian drones and missile strikes multiple districts in Kiev, injuring 6 people, including a child. Explosions hit apartment buildings, triggering fires, while air defense units engaged to protect the city. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem has declared the group has the right to respond to Israel and will determine the timing for it. This comes after Israel had killed its top military chief Haitham Ali Tabatabai in Beirut. Europe's Airbus has ordered immediate repairs to 6,000 of its widely used A320 family of jets, which are the backbone of Asian short-haul aviation, particularly in China and India. French President Emmanuel Macron will visit China next week to push for a partnership based on mutual interests. He plans to urge Beijing to treat Europe as an independent major partner. Floods across Southeast Asia have killed at least 321 people as waters now begin to recede. Authorities in Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand are rescuing stranded citizens after a week of cyclone-fueled rain. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our key focus. U.S. President Donald Trump has now claimed that many documents signed during former President Joe Biden's term are invalid because they were authorized, as he claims, using an autopen. He's made the assertion in a recent post on his social media platform, Truth Social, where he challenged the legitimacy of executive orders and other actions signed during the former Biden administration. Now, Trump has stated that the use of a mechanical signature device meant that key documents did not have direct presidential approval. He's also suggested that the process may have been improperly managed by those around Biden during his time earlier in office. Meanwhile, Biden has firmly rejected these claims. According to him, all decisions and approvals were made by him personally during his term, and this includes actions related to pardons, executive orders, and legislation. However, there is no public record of how many documents were signed by autopen during Biden's term. In all of this, it is important to note that the use of autopen is not something new. Multiple U.S. presidents, including Barack Obama and Donald Trump himself, have also used the device to sign official documents when traveling or unable to sign in person. Just last month, House Republicans stated that they view executive actions signed by autopen without documented presidential consent as invalid and called for a Justice Department review. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Collins Chong-Yu Keat, Foreign Affairs and Security and Strategy Analyst from the University Malaya in Kuala Lumpur. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. As I mentioned earlier, the use of the autopen is not a new phenomenon. We've seen it in prior administrations, whether it's Obama or Trump himself. But now Trump is claiming that certain executive orders, pardons that were given by Biden are invalid because of the use of his claimed use of an autopen. What sort of political firestorm is this likely to trigger?
Well, Trump is drawing a hard line on presidential authenticity. We have seen how the real thing that matters will be, of course, only a president's real signature carries weight, executive authority. And of course, he's framing Biden's reliance on autopen as a sign of weak leadership, detachment, and a lack of capacity, which accusations that he has made repeatedly over the years. And this becomes a credibility and competence attack. If Biden isn't signing all these orders himself, then are they really truly presidential decisions? And of course, they have been made by the staffers and all that. So we have seen how there's a delegated decision making in terms of volume, in terms of the repetition of these signatures being used, and this also undermines constitutional responsibility. And of course, also now he's claiming this to ensure that some of the politics can now be undone. And of course, also by attacking the usage of autopen, Trump is indirectly attacking Biden's own stamina, health, and capacity in carrying out his responsibilities towards the American people. So this gives Trump a political and legal pretext and context to immediately unwind certain Biden's policies, and that they have to have this kind of rapid reversals in areas including on immigration, on border security, on student loans and all that. So this is a big win and strategic move by Trump to shift the narrative and to portray that Biden has been weak all along and that he has been relying a lot on his staffers, and he has seen now as a puppet, and not as a true presidential capacity in terms of carrying out the true tasks needed as a president of the United States.
Indeed, I also wanted to understand what sort of a precedent, if Trump does in fact go ahead and do what he's claiming to do, that he's going to consider all of these orders invalid. What sort of precedent would then Donald Trump be setting down the line for future presidents?
I think you set a very strategic and a good precedent to future presidents, in that the president himself will need to have direct control on all the signatures of all the important documents, and to have to be in the know of the decision making processes, and it's not being seen as a shadow governance or a puppet to certain people, and that every order will need to be personally viewed and signed and being decided upon only by the president himself or herself. So it's a direct presidential leadership capacity in that sense. And this move has also framed Trump's administration as very direct, hands-on, transparent, and vigorous and capable, in direct contrast to Biden's weak leadership and administration. So we have seen how this has shifted the blame to the Democrats, and why wasn't autopen being used? Of course, it has been used before, but how often? And was Biden actually reviewing these documents himself, and was he actually at the helm of decision making, or was it his staff or the staffers have been deciding on these policies? So this is the core concern of the matter that Trump is trying to portray, and that it is rightly so, because it is the most important decision making by the president, and the impact will be profound for the American people and the security of the country as a whole.
Absolutely. I also wanted to understand, could this dispute over the signature method then escalate to a legal fight as well? Could we see the Democrats taking it to the courts?
Well, of course, this will most likely prolong, but it will give the additional positive pretext for the current Trump administration to use this as an excuse, also as a constitutional review, in that some of the policies being made or being undertaken by the Biden administration, and of course being signed by autopen and all that, will have profound implication for the American people, especially with regards to the core matters of immigration, border control, on energy, on defense policies. Absolutely. And the pretext was that this has not been reviewed by the president himself, by Biden himself, and that most of the decisions made are vague, ambiguous, and they do not reflect the decision making by Biden himself. So this is the core issue at hand here, and Trump is right to point out, and this is a serious matter that will affect the security and safety of the American people, and that the way forward will be, of course, for Trump to set a very good precedent for the future presidents, to ensure that only direct control is made by the president in terms of signing off documents and in terms of decision making at the highest level.
You've spoken about the fact that there are some very sensitive issues that are signed upon by the US president. In light of this particular dispute over the signature, how is this likely to impact international perception regarding the reliability of the executive actions of the US president?
Well, it differs based on who is at the helm. Of course, Trump is being seen as strong, capable, of course, also with his own charisma and the ambiguous approach. And of course, also we have seen how Biden has been portrayed as weak, incapable, and being bogged down by this conventional dogma of political correctness, and of course conventional norms of decision making capacities in terms of whether it's foreign policy, whether it's internal policies. We have seen that before. We have seen how the disastrous decisions being made with regards to the Afghanistan withdrawal, with regards to how Ukraine conflict is started basically under his watch, and Trump is right to point out that, and this has been prevalent in terms of the contrast being seen under a Democratic administration as opposed to the Republican administration, especially under the Trump administration. So it doesn't really make that much of a profound change, but it has much more to do with who is really, the president at that time. And we have seen the contrast now of Biden and Trump.
All right, so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. On that note, viewers, we're shifting focus to further developments, this time with regards to Europe's Airbus. We're now learning that Airbus has ordered immediate repairs to 6,000 of its widely used A320 family of jets in a sweeping recall affecting more than half the global fleet, which is, of course, the backbone of Asian short-haul aviation, particularly in China and India. As a result, airlines and aviation regulators around the world have issued advisories and directives. We're now learning that Indian aviation regulator has told airlines not to fly Airbus A320 family aircrafts until modifications are carried out under EASA directives. Indian airlines have, Air India has come out and stated that Airbus directive could lead to longer turnaround time and delays to scheduled operations. Meanwhile, Japan's biggest airline, the ANA, has stated that it cancelled over 65 flights after the Airbus 320 recall forced it to ground some aircrafts. South Korea's Korean Air has also stated that the work will be completed most likely by Sunday morning, that is tomorrow, on 10 Airbus aircrafts that require software updates. Meanwhile, UK Transport Secretary had stated that Airbus issues have limited impact on UK airlines, with fewer aircrafts needing complex repairs. This appears to be among the largest recalls affecting Airbus in its 55-year history and comes weeks after the A320 overtook the Boeing 737 as the most delivered model in the world. At the time Airbus issued its bulletin to the plane's more than 350 operators and airlines, some 3,000 A320 family jets were in the air. Shifting focus to what's taking place in Ukraine, we're now learning that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has stated that his chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, has resigned after anti-corruption investigators raided his home. Yermak has been one of the most powerful figures in Kiev for years. He is not accused of any wrongdoing, but has faced huge pressure as the $100 million energy sector scandal has shaken the government. Zelensky has stated that the president's office will be reorganized and he will choose a replacement very soon. The scandal, of course, threatens Ukraine's political stability and its negotiations with the US over a new peace plan. Meanwhile, Russia has pushed maximalist demands, of course. Public anger has surged. Polls show that 70% wanted Yermak to step down. Zelensky, meanwhile, has urged unity within Ukraine, warning that the country cannot afford internal conflict during the war. With us on the broadcast is Colonel Sanjeet Sirohi, International Relations and Defense expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World. Of course, this particular $100 million energy sector scandal has shaken Ukraine. We've seen resignations from some of the top ministers who were embroiled in the scandal itself. Now it seems that Volodymyr Zelensky's chief of staff has also tendered his resignation. There were polls that were showcasing that 70% of the population was in favor of this as well. Considering the fact that, Zelensky is dealing with the war and now troubles on the domestic front as well, where do you see this particular scandal headed as far as the negotiations for the peace deal are concerned? Do you think the Americans have some sort of leverage over the Ukrainians over the misappropriation of funds to the tune of $100 million?
Thank you, Priya. Thank you very much for calling me on this debate. Now, let me tell you, as you have already brought out, that Andriy Yermak, he was the most powerful man after Zelensky in Ukraine. And he was the one who was dealing with the American team as far as the negotiation for peace were concerned. Yes. And I believe he was a very powerful man, and whatever he decided was already implemented or was to be implemented. Now, the raid on his house on Friday by the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, it has shown that there is something going on wrong with this. And not only this, before that, Zelensky has fired his energy minister and justice minister also. Yes. And in addition to that, there was a businessman who was close associate of Zelensky, Timur Menshin, who has also fled the country, thinking that he will also be arrested or he will also be taken into consideration when the investigation goes on. So there is a lot of chaos going on in Ukraine, and there is an internal instability. Now, on the one side, the negotiations are going on with US team. US team is pressurizing Zelensky to accept the 28 points which were given out. But Andrei Yermak was the one who had softened the stance of the Americans, and he was the person who was working on it. So there is an immediate problem for Zelensky, that who is going to replace him, and who is the person who is competent enough to talk to the Americans and dilute the stance which the Americans are taking based on what Mr. Putin has asked them to do it. So that is number one problem which I can identify. Number two problem is there is an internal problem. There is a distinct cry from the American, distinct Ukrainian people. They are talking about this energy scandalized, where $100 million of this thing has been embezzled, and there has been kickbacks which have been taken, and even the government-owned companies are being pressurized for that. So that is number two problem. Number three is that Zelensky wants to join the European Union. Now, European Union has been very, very open about it, that there is a lot of corruption. I think the Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe. So they have number of times they have told the Ukrainians that you must take strong action against the corruption, then only you will be included in the European Union. So I think there are a lot of problems for Ukraine, Ukraine, and especially for Zelensky. And I don't think he will be able to sort out this problem, especially when the negotiations are going on with the Americans and then subsequently with the Russians. Pia.
Absolutely, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us. We're tracking further developments as far as the war itself is concerned. We're now learning that according to reports, a Russian drone attack has hit Kiev overnight, wounding 7 people. Loud explosions had rocked the city around midnight as multiple blasts were heard across several districts. Mayor Vitaly Klitschko has stated that amongst the injured is a 13-year-old child that is receiving medical attention. 4 victims are also hospitalized. Timur Kachenko, head of Kiev's military administration, has confirmed that enemy drones are over the city and multiple targets lie on the outskirts. He's added that air defense units are actively responding to the attack to protect the capital. Mayor Klitschko has also urged residents to remain in shelters, warning that the city remains at risk while authorities are assessing the damage. Residential buildings and cars have suffered damage across several neighborhoods, causing disruption and panic amongst residents. Authorities, meanwhile, continue monitoring the situation very closely, keeping defense and emergency teams on high alert. Still with us on the broadcast is Colonel Sanjeet Sirohi. We've been seeing a barrage of attacks. These attacks are just escalating day by day. More people are losing their lives. Trump has pointed out that his first priority is to stop the war and ensure that further lives are not lost. But of course, his plan was being seen as being rather sympathetic to the Russian side. There were several negotiations that had taken place in Geneva with Marco Rubio and a Ukrainian delegation. Further talks were earlier held in Abu Dhabi between Dan Driscoll and the Russians as well. Now we're expecting a Ukrainian delegation to head to Florida over the weekend. Amidst all of this, there have been murmurs that some of the clauses as far as the cap that was put earlier on the size of Ukraine's military, that will be relaxed. Also the question of NATO-style security guarantees could also be provided to the Ukrainians. If a fresh draft does accommodate Europe's concerns and Ukraine's concerns in particular, do you think the Russians will then accept it or not?
Well, Pia, let's be very clear about it, that whenever the peace negotiation or something towards peace is being talked about, the Russian strategy is to start pumping more drones and start pumping more bombs on Ukraine so that they can pressurize Mr. Zelensky, who has been against this plan, what Donald Trump administration has put out, that is a 28-point plan. And there is no doubt about it, these 28 points which have been considered, these are the most of the points which are very, very, as you have brought out, they are very, very sympathetic to a Russian. In fact, people say that it is a Russian plan, and this proposal was given by Russia to the Americans, and Donald Trump has passed the same plan to Zelensky. And for Zelensky, it is very, very difficult to surrender the territory of complete Donbass. The Russians have already pointed out that they want that Donbass region should be totally evacuated by the Ukrainian army even the strategic towns and strategic fortresses where the Ukrainian army is strong, Russians want them also to evacuate that and leave that place so that Russians can occupy that. So I think it is very, very difficult decision for Mr. Zelensky to accept these peace proposal, and I think Zelensky will be in a very tight position if he accepts that, because losing 20% of their territory is not a joke.
Absolutely.
And that is what the Russians are asking for. So I think the Russians, whenever the people are going closer to the peace, Russians, they always start doing more aggressive action against the Ukrainian, and that is what now they have started bombarding by drones and missiles the Kiev, so that the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian president, he comes under pressure and somehow he signs the deal. So now we have to see how these 28 programs are diluted in favor of Ukraine to some extent, and what are the security guarantee which are being thought of being given to the Ukrainian. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking our time, of course, sharing your analysis with our viewers on the broadcast today. On that note, we're tracking some further developments from the Black Sea region. We're now learning that 2 oil tankers have been struck by explosions in the Black Sea off Turkey's coast. A Gambian flagged vessel, the Kairos, empty and en route to Russia's Novorossiysk port, caught fire around 6 p.m. local time, 28 nautical miles off Turkey's Gefken. The blaze, which produced thick black smoke, is believed to have been caused by an external device, possibly a mine, rocket or drone. Fortunately, all 25 crew members are reported to be safe. A second tanker, the Virat, also flagged by Gambia, reported being hit about 35 nautical miles away. Rescue teams and a nearby cargo vessel quickly responded, and all 20 crew members on board were evacuated safely. Both vessels are under Western sanctions for transporting Russian oil despite the ongoing embargo. Turkish officials are investigating the cause of the explosions, and so far, no pollution has been reported up until now. The fires are, of course, being closely monitored. Well, viewers, due to paucity of time, this is all we have for this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws, and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
Hello and and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Hong Kong authorities report that 128 are now dead with 79 injured, including 12 firefighters, one seriously, in a high-rise apartment complex fire in Tai Po. Rescue efforts are complete, but around 200 residents remain unaccounted for. US President Donald Trump announces that National Guard trooper Sarah Beckstrom has died after a shooting near the White House. He said the second soldier remains in critical condition and is fighting for his life. US President Donald Trump announces a sweeping set of immigration proposals. He vows to permanently pause migration from all third world countries and launch what he described as a reverse migration to restore order in the United States. Russian President Putin meets with his Hungarian Prime Minister Orban in Moscow, praising his stance on Ukraine and suggesting Budapest could host talks with the US on the conflict. Orban stresses that Hungary will continue relying on Russian energy despite European Union and US pressure. US President Donald Trump says the United States will very soon begin action on land to stop suspected Venezuelan drug traffickers. They will soon expand operations beyond maritime strikes amid rising tension and increased US military deployments in the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Kyiv holds daily consultations with international partners to counter Russia's war. He adds Ukrainian and US delegations will meet again to advance frameworks for peace and security guarantees. The Jordanian Foreign Ministry confirmed that 2 Jordanians were killed after being illegally recruited to fight for the Russian army, with spokesperson Food Majali warning that such recruitment violates Jordanian and international law. The ministry has urged citizens to report recruitment attempts and has called on Russia to halt Jordanian enlistments. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei criticizes the Trump administration, calling it unworthy of contact or cooperation with Tehran. He also denied rumors that Iran had sent messages to Washington. And viewers, Hong Kong authorities have confirmed that the deadly high-rise fire that killed at least 128 people was started on lower floor protective netting and spread via flammable styrofoam boards and bamboo scaffolding. Security Chief Chris Tang said the fire quickly spread upward and was fueled by burning debris. 5 people have been arrested as of now, including 2 directors from Will Power Architects and 3 senior staff from Prestige Construction and Engineering. Authorities also revealed that fire alarms were malfunctioning and promised enforcement action. Adding on, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Hong Kong's Chief Executive John Lee have expressed condolences, with a full criminal investigation now underway. And residents of the Wan Phu Court housing complex are devastated after the deadly fire engulfed the development, claiming at least 128 lives and leaving 200 still missing. Many people who once lived happily in the community now face the trauma of unsurety. With neighbors gone and homes destroyed, police have arrested 3 construction officials on manslaughter charges after unsafe flammable material, including foam boards, blocking windows, were found to have contributed to the rapid spread of the blaze. Let's listen.
呢度係我屋企，望去嗰度10樓就係我屋企，嗰個排山嗰度就係我屋企。屋企應該係唔會俾我哋翻去㗎啦，所以我望到我屋企，我心好難受。開心嘅我哋屋企，我哋呢個小區嘅人都好開心嘅，知道。我哋呢個小區嘅啲人咧，生活個個都好好嘅，都唔係話。 過生活都係好幸福嘅感覺俾我哋，因為我哋日日翻工放工，街坊見到都好熱情打招呼，但係而家啲街坊我都見唔翻，又唔知佢哋點喎。
Moving on now, viewers, to news from Pakistan, where Imran Khan's son Qasim has issued a sharp warning to the government, alleging that the former Prime Minister is being held in inhumane isolation inside the Adiala jail. His remarks come amid a surge of online rumors claiming Khan may have died in custody, triggered by an unverified Afghan media report. Qasim addressed on social media that it has been 845 days since his father's arrest and that for the past 6 weeks he has been confined to a death cell with no family contact. He claimed that despite court orders, Khan's sisters have been repeatedly denied meetings and that he and his brother have no communication with their father. Calling the situation complete darkness, Qasim has alleged that this isolation is not linked to security but an intentional effort to hide Khan's condition and whereabouts. He has warned that the Pakistani government and its masters would bear full responsibility for his father's safety. Qasim has urged international bodies to intervene and demanded proof of life, court-ordered access, an end to isolation and the release of what he called Pakistan's most popular political leader. Imran Khan's sister Alima Khanum has echoed these concerns, saying the family has faced months of inconsistent and restricted access, often waiting outside the prison for hours only to be refused. She has stated that Pakistan facing darkest time and the controversy continues. Adiala jail authorities have rejected all rumors about Khan's health, however, or transfer, insisting he is in completely good health and remains in the facility. Imran Khan has been jailed since August 2023 and multiple cases are against him. He says all those cases are politically driven. And Abdul Yaqub, who's a spokesperson of Pakistan's PTI, is joining us live from Islamabad. Thank you for joining us here on NewsX World. I want to ask you, what really do you think is happening to Imran Khan?
Well, we exactly do not have any information, any clue about Imran Khan's condition, what is going on with him now. I mean, whether he's confined in Adiala jail or he's present in Adiala jail's premises. There is no news, no updates. There is no single person, reliable person who can confirm us. We don't have any source who can meet him. The meeting is being denied from last 25 days. Even the court hearings are postponed, which was supposed to be happened yesterday. So no lawyer, no family member, no immediate family member, no friend, no lawyer is allowed to meet him. So that is a very, very concerning. I mean, it's deeply concerning. We have a grave concern about his health and his condition at the moment. I cannot say anything with the certainty that what is exactly going on with Imran Khan and where he is exactly at the moment. I mean, this is a very absurd situation. It is creating panic amongst the people, among the followers of Imran Khan. It had never happened before. I mean, we have over apprehensions are that his life is at a risk, in a great danger, because dark historical record shows us that Mr. Bhutto was hanged, Benazir Bhutto was assassinated on the roads of the Pindi, Liaquat Ali Khan was killed in a public gathering. So the dark histories, we are getting more scared about Imran Khan.
But the government advisors are saying that he continues to remain in good condition and health.
Even, they are irrelevant in this matter. Usually when the former prime ministers or popular leaders are being arrested, they are in the custody of the military establishment, not in the government's custody. So these so-called puppet government advisors or cabinet members are nothing to do with this. I mean, they don't have, even the prime minister do not have any jurisdiction. I mean, when chief minister of KPK contacted prime minister when he got elected and asked him to arrange and facilitate the meeting with Imran Khan, even the prime minister shows his helplessness in this matter. And yesterday it was the 9th time that the chief minister of the KPK went to the Adiala jail, and he spent the whole night outside the Adiala jail and was being denied any access to Imran Khan. So this is the state of affairs at the moment. I don't know where it is leading towards.
What are your demands? I would want to ask that. And also, do you think that Asim Munir's, the crackdown on the PTI have escalated after Asim Munir's elevation?
Well, yes, the major crackdown was after the 9th May, where 10,000 workers were being arrested. At that moment, still there are over hundreds of workers under the military custody who are facing the military trials. Some are sentenced, and still thousands of the workers are behind the bars. And since this current in the current military leadership, we are facing the worst kind of dictatorship, and the way they are trying to suppress us, it never have happened in the liberal democracies. So currently, it is like they are approaching with the medieval kind of approach. There is no rule of law, which I mean, we cannot even seek justice from the courts. We have court orders. Despite the court orders having court orders, the court orders are being violated, being humiliated by the authorities, by the police, by the jail authorities. So I mean, the only option left to us is to massively protest on the roads and go for the shutdown, go for the strikes. Otherwise, we do not have any other option left.
All right. Well, for now, thank you for joining us, Abdul Yaqub on NewsX World. And viewers, we now move on to news from Russia. President Vladimir Putin welcomed Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban to the Kremlin today, praising his balanced position on Ukraine. Orban, who is a strong pro-Moscow European Union leader, has consistently opposed tougher sanctions on Russia and criticized Western aid to Ukraine. During the meeting, Putin said that he would be glad to host talks on Ukraine with the US in Budapest. Energy issues were also highlighted, with Orban emphasizing Hungary's continued reliance on Russian energy. Orban added that Hungary will continue to rely heavily on Russian energy, signaling its commitment despite European Union and US pressure to diversify away from Russia. Now, Orban is the first European Union leader to take this stance on Russia, and he in fact has also criticized US aid to Ukraine. He will be meeting Putin very soon. There are also reports surfacing about how Orban said that he will continue to import oil and gas from Russia as it continues to remain the most viable option. Energy issues were also highlighted, with Orban emphasizing Hungary's continued reliance on Russian energy. It's signaling its commitment despite European Union and US pressure to diversify away from Russia. Now, Orban is a strong pro-Moscow EU leader, consistently has opposed tougher sanctions on Russia. He's also criticized Ukraine's dependence on the United States. And now let's welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji, who's an international relations and defense expert, into the discussion here at NewsX World. Welcome back, retired Major General, here on NewsX World. It's a very interesting stance that Orban is taking, one very similar to India's as well, as far as energy and oil and gas import is concerned. Do you think the elections due in Hungary next year has anything to do with this?
Certainly, Kirti, yes, because any activity now which is taking place along the Eastern Europe border and in Central Europe will have all the connections with the ongoing conflict and the economics which are supporting the conflict, both sides, I would say. And so much so, Hungary, we know the loyalty, the standing reputation, and its long-standing relationship with Russia, it definitely will have, because it is one of the countries which is not budging. You know, that at one point in time, like India stood its ground despite all pressures and all kinds of tariff and everything. India stood its ground and insisted, no, we support, we respect our strategic autonomy. It is in the national interest. It is in the interest of the people. Same is the case with Hungary. Back to you, please.
All right, to stay on with us, we now shift to another crucial news coming in. China's top diplomat Wang Yi will travel to Russia next week for high-level security talks. Beijing's foreign ministry announced that Wang will be in Russia for a routine Russia-China strategic security consultation. He was invited by Russian security chief Sergei Shoigu. During the meetings, Wang is expected to exchange views on international and regional issues of mutual concern and strengthen communication and coordination on key strategic security matters. The visit comes as the US renews its push to end the war in Ukraine. Washington recently surprised Kyiv and European partners with a new proposal to resolve the nearly 4-year conflict. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he would end the offensive if Ukraine withdrew from the territory claimed by Moscow. Otherwise, he warned Russian forces would seize it by force. All right, viewers, let's welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji into the discussion here. So what do you think is going to be the key agenda and outcome of this crucial meeting between China and Russia?
Kriti, the key agenda, as I see, would be revolving around the changing dynamics in the geopolitical churn. When I say changing dynamics, it will be in keeping with the larger interest central to all its activities in relation to China's national interest. When I say China's national interest, what is the China's national interest? As I look at things, you see, given the turmoil which is happening inside the USA in its domestic constituency and its extended outreach to resolve the issue in Middle East and in the Central Europe, the likely bottlenecks which are going to come its way, you see, there is a contestation, there is a strategic rivalry between China and the USA for their dominance in the world over. Today, while we discuss the issue on the channel, we need to acknowledge one fact, whether willingly or unwillingly, we need to accept that despite USA being a superpower, China has left USA behind in many issues, economics, technology, and critical minerals, rare earth element, and the supply chain dependence on China as a manufacturing hub in the world. Although the world order is trying to switch and diversify and de-risk its options, but the fact remains something on which the whole world order was dependent for 40 long years or more than that. You cannot actually switch your dependence overnight. It takes lots of time, maybe another equal amount, if not equal, at least 20-30 years to de-risk. So under this backdrop, first and foremost thing that comes to my mind is that should In any case, there is no light at the end of the tunnel in the peace proposal which is being given now, 28 point between Russia and Ukraine. But if, let's say, hypothetically, we all try and project an optimistic kind of outlook, let's say the peace actually materializes, it actually sustains. In that case, the dynamics will undergo change, because what I feel, America in earnest is trying to take Russia away from the embrace of China. You see, America is trying to form a kind of a G2 separately when it comes to China. When it comes to Russia, it is keeping in the back of the mind that there are three poles. One is America, the second is Russia, the third is China. These are the global dynamics and the imperatives. So take Russia onto its lap, keep the Russia on its side, and isolate China in a manner so that it becomes easy for America or USA to firstly contain, then to counter, and if push comes to shove, if it is required, going for a competitiveness kind of a rivalry and then lead to a contestation, which is not desirable. So the key issue as far as USA is concerned, isolate China. The key issue as far as China is concerned is to isolate the USA and keep playing its game in a manner so that it attains, rejuvenates its Middle Kingdom concept by 2049 or earlier than that, and retains the authority and supremacy of a global power, which without firing a shot, not like proxy war which is being fought. China does not believe in fighting a kinetic war. China believes in fighting a war or winning a war without fighting one. It's the Sun Tzu's old saying. And the third component in your question is Russia. Where does Russia go? Russia, will it be there inside of the China, or it goes onto the flank of USA? Well, that time is going to say. Everything can be changed, but geography cannot be changed. By virtue of contiguity, by virtue of proximity between Russia and China, there will be a degree of difference although, but there will also be a high degree of dependence on many issues. China will be continue to buy oil from Russia. Russia also would be dependent on China for many military hardware and other things, as also the supply chain management of many products and issues.
All right. Well, thank you, Retired Major General, for sharing your perspective with us. And viewers, let's move on now. The Iranian Football Federation has said that it will boycott next week's World Cup finals draw in Washington after the United States refused to grant visas to several members of its delegation. Federation President Mehdi Taj condemned the move as political and said he has urged FIFA President to press the US to reverse what he called unacceptable behavior. The US, which is co-hosting the 2026 World Cup with Canada and Mexico, has had strained relations with Iran for over 4 decades. Recent nuclear talks between Washington and Tehran, already tense over Iran's uranium enrichment program, collapsed in mid-June after Israel launched a major bombing campaign against Iran, a conflict that escalated into a 12-day war and drew brief US involvement with strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. Let's bring back retired Major General Sudhakarji into the discussion here. So this was clearly in the writing. Are we even surprised with the action that Iran is taking?
Yeah, the writing was large on the wall. It was a known case. In fact, I am not surprised that such a ban would take place. It has happened for many issues. 2 of them you have listed out in the preamble which you have given. There are many issues. You see, even now, despite the fact that there is a ongoing conflict in the Middle East, to quite an extent, Iran continues to provide some of the military hardware to Russia. They have got a strategic partnership this year only. The leadership of Iran had visited Russia. They have signed, but that partnership is all predominated by economic paradigm. It doesn't have any military overhang or bearing. So when I say this, what I mean is that if Iran is attacked, will Russia come to its support with boots on ground? It doesn't say anything about yes. nor does it say no. So they are strategic partners. But it continues to provide the military hardware. Second thing is that if you recall the hijab issue and the lady who was taken into police custody and finally she died, I'm forgetting her name, Asmin, she died in the police custody. That is another issue which is related to human rights. Also, the third issue is that you alluded to the uranium enrichment. You see, notwithstanding what is coming out in the open media, my research has suggested many on occasion that much against what Iran and open media is suggesting, that it has already crossed or reached 60% of enrichment capability. I have sources to, credible sources to indicate that Iran has already crossed 86.7, rather to be more precise and specific, 87.7% of enrichment. The little boy which was dropped over Hiroshima way back in 1945 had an enrichment scale of 86.6%. So you can well imagine where Iran stands and how much effort would it require Iran to actually reach or have a nuclear warhead, which may be a big threat not only to Middle East but to USA as well. And last but not the least is that Iran consistently continues to actually, cause a lot of impediment to, hidden agenda of all activities taking place. Despite the agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran with the help of China, it is not a reliable and credible partner for Abraham Accord. Because the feud or the conflict between Shia and Sunni is an ongoing conflict for past nearly over 1400 years. So that conflict to come to an end in the Middle East so soon, so abruptly, without any sustainable and consistent effort, overnight, I would say, comparatively overnight, is a very tall order, and it's a pipe dream. So therefore, the entire dynamics, the historical perspective has to undergo change. There is a contestation between the three countries, Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Iran, for Ummah leadership. And likewise, Shia Sunni will continue. Iran will continue to support like I have been saying through your channel, it is called the octopus doctrine. The head of octopus is Iran, and the tentacle of Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah and Habib al-Said, this is the fourth H. They remain active in addition to the militia with the support of Iran, although they have been decimated to large an account. But they will keep reviving with their ugly face. So under these circumstances, USA in no uncertain terms had made it very clear in the past as also now that the FIFA participation by USA with regard to these four names that are figuring, I think it is only four names, stands to be banned. They will not be provided visa. Right. Also, in the open source, I am given to India.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination. And if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
Hello and welcome viewers, I'm Pia and you're watching Gulf Today on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the headlines this hour. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem has declared the group has the right to respond to Israel and will determine the timing for it. This comes after its top military chief Haitham Ali Tatabai was killed in an Israeli strike in Beirut. The Lebanese army has boosted its presence along the border with Israel, deploying nearly 10,000 troops and closing 11 smuggling points. Soldiers are tackling unexploded ordnance and reclaiming areas formerly dominated by Hezbollah. The United Nations has condemned the killing of 2 Palestinian men in Jenin, calling it an apparent summary execution. This comes after Israeli forces shot men who appeared to surrender while authorities are investigating the incident. According to reports, an Israeli raid has killed 13 people in southern Syria. Damascus has, of course, condemned the strike and branded it a criminal attack, while Israel has stated that 6 of its troops were wounded by fire during the raid. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem has welcomed Pope Leo XIV's upcoming visit to Lebanon. He has sent a letter to the pontiff and hopes the trip promotes peace and ends Israeli aggression, as he's termed it. According to reports, 2 oil tankers have caught fire in the Black Sea off the coast of Turkey. Explosions have hit the Gambia-flagged Kairos and Virat, but all 45 crew members have now been safely evacuated. US President Donald Trump has announced plans to cancel most of former President Joe Biden's executive orders. He's claimed that an autopen was used improperly by Biden, who did not personally sign the documents. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced the resignation of his chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, following an anti-corruption raid. He's called for national unity, warning that the country risks losing itself if it is divided. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem has stated that the group reserves the right to respond to Israel and will decide upon the timing of its response. His statement comes after the assassination of their top military chief, Haitham Ali Tatabai, in an Israeli strike that took place last week in the southern suburbs of Beirut. In a televised address, he's now described the strike as a blatant aggression, indicating that Hezbollah could spark a new war with Israel, if possible, but has not provided any specifics on the further role of the outfit. He's further called on Lebanon to prepare strategies that could rely on both the Lebanese army and civilian resources to confront Israel. Now, according to reports, the Hezbollah chief, Tabatabai, was targeted while meeting with 4 aides to plan future actions. The group is, of course, looking at regrouping, especially after most of its top leadership was killed in Israeli strikes last year, following which we've seen the ceasefire agreement in November 2024. Not much has come out of that as well. But now Hezbollah maintains that it will not disarm as long as Israel carries out strikes and stations troops in southern Lebanon. In response, Israeli military officials have criticized the Lebanese army for failing to control Hezbollah's arsenal, stating that the group continues to operate covertly and strengthen its weapons. Despite, as I mentioned earlier, the November 2024 ceasefire, Israel has conducted near-daily strikes in southern Lebanon, and attacks have been taking place on Beirut intermittently, although the capital has remained unhit for months prior to last week's assassination. With us on the broadcast is Professor Rohan Gunaratne, International Affairs expert, joining us from Singapore. Thank you so much, sir, for taking our time. Speaking to us on NewsX World, we've been tracking what's been taking place in Lebanon for quite a while now. Hezbollah, of course, coming out and putting this statement. But what the IDF has basically tried to achieve here, as many analysts are pointing out, is that it is trying to prevent the Hezbollah from regrouping. Interesting statement by the Hezbollah leader, Naim Qasim, who's called on the Lebanese army and the civilian resources to come together to fight Israel. While Lebanon does have its gripes with the Israelis that continue to occupy territory in southern Lebanon, there's also a lot of pressure from the United States of America upon the Lebanese government to ensure the disarmament of Hezbollah, which is quite the political force as well in the country. How do you think the Lebanese government will now navigate through all of this?
Yeah, what we have seen is that Israel mounted a very decisive attack to eliminate the chief of staff of the Lebanese Hezbollah 5 days ago. And what we have seen is that particular attack has been very decisive because the Lebanese Hezbollah is now reviving, it is arming, it is regrouping, and it's planning to mount attacks because it continues to receive support from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran's intelligence service. And the Lebanese military, although it has received significant US assistance, is unable to disarm Hezbollah because Hezbollah is still a very powerful organization both in Lebanon and overseas. So Israel's course of action is to decapitate the leadership and to decimate the rank and file. And it is very likely after Naim Qasim's threat that Hezbollah has the right to respond after his chief of staff was killed, that Israel will also eliminate him. Lebanese Hezbollah has no more chances of survival and revival as long as IDF continues to attack. And considering the attacks that Lebanese Hezbollah has conducted against US forces and the French forces from 1983 onwards, and of course attacks against Israel, this group should be dismantled because there is no security and stability in the region with a group like the Lebanese Hezbollah. So I believe the international community should support Lebanon to rebuild its military forces and to dismantle the Hezbollah organization.
All right, sir, requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking further updates as far as Lebanon is concerned. We're now learning that the Lebanese army has been stepping up its presence along the border with Israel in areas that were once strongholds of Hezbollah. Now, the region south of the Litani River had been off limits to both the National Army and the UN peacekeepers for years. Since last year's ceasefire, Lebanese troop numbers have risen to nearly 10,000, and the army has closed almost 11 crossing points that were earlier used for smuggling. In addition to boosting troops, the army is also working to clear large amounts of unexploded weapons scattered across the area. Recently, local and international journalists were taken on a tour to see the deployment, showcasing troops in locations where Hezbollah had previously maintained a heavy military presence. Meanwhile, Israel has warned in recent weeks that Hezbollah is working to rebuild its capabilities in southern Lebanon. However, the Lebanese army commander has described the current deployment as crucial during this period, stressing that they are doing so to secure their border and ensure regional stability. Still with us on the broadcast is Professor Rohan Gunaratne. Interesting development coming in the Lebanese army as well, now taking over strongholds that once were controlled by the Hezbollah, and we've been seeing attempts by the group to in fact once again come together and bring about its cadres together and regroup. But what's also interesting is that in the neighborhood, we've seen a major change take place since the ceasefire last year. I'm referring to not just the 12-day war between Israel and Iran that had in fact ended up ensuring that Iran used a lot of its weapons stockpile, but also the fact that the regime in Syria had changed. Bashar al-Assad was removed from power, and now al-Sharaa has taken over, who's of course trying to mend Syria's ties with the West, the US in particular. Considering all of this, to what extent could the Hezbollah's quest to regroup be dented?
Certainly, the international community should work very hard to make sure that this group is completely eliminated. But unfortunately, this group has significant support among the Shia community in Lebanon. But with a group like the Lebanese Hezbollah, Lebanon will never prosper. It will always remain a poor country, a country that is struggling, a country where there is no security and stability. And of course, the Lebanese Hezbollah is not only a domestic organization, it's an international terrorist organization, and that is why it is so important for regional actors, not only the United States and Israel, but other countries in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East, come together to ensure that this group will never revive. This group introduced suicide terrorism to the world in 1983 by bombing the US Marine barracks and the French paratrooper headquarters. It has conducted some of the most despicable terrorist attacks. It has done many hostage takings, and it has continued to provide training and weapons to Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and other groups in Gaza. It has continued to provide assistance and training to Ansarullah of the Houthi movement in Yemen. And of course, it maintained a very significant presence in Syria during Bashar al-Assad's regime. Now that the neck of this group has been strangled and many of its operational and penultimate leaders has been killed, I believe that more work is needed to ensure that this group does not become a surging threat to the region and beyond.
Indeed, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some further crucial developments. We're now learning that the United Nations has stated that the killing of 2 Palestinian men in Jenin in the West Bank by Israeli forces appears to be a summary execution. Footage shows the men surrendering, lifting their shirts and lying on the ground before being shot. The Israeli military and police stated that they are investigating, claiming that the men were affiliated with a terror network. Palestinian group Islamic Jihad has stated that one was a commander and the other a fighter. The UN has condemned the killings, calling them brazen and a violation of human rights, while Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has publicly supported the forces, calling it justified. Rights groups and the Palestinian Authority labeled what's taken place as a heinous extrajudicial killing and a possible war crime amidst ongoing Israeli raids in northern West Bank. Still with us on the broadcast is Professor Rohan Gunaratne. This is not the only case. We've also seen some rather sensitive cases come to light as far as the West Bank is concerned. We've now seen relative peace and calm in Gaza ever since the Trump's 21-point peace plan, the first phase of which was implemented, and the UNSC then accepted the broader resolution as well. This sort of unrest that we're seeing, these actions by the Israeli military as well that we're seeing, these summary executions, as the United Nations has pointed out, could we then expect the West Bank to now turn volatile?
Here, the threat that was in Gaza has now expanded to West Bank, and that is why Israel has mounted a series of operations in West Bank that the Israelis call Judea and Samaria. So what is important is to investigate this attack in greater detail, because there are conflicting information. Some are saying that even the video that you referred to was edited. Some are saying that they were members of a terrorist group. Whatever it may be, if two people surrendered, certainly they should not have been killed, because they would have been more valuable if they were alive, even from intelligence perspective to IDF. So what is important is to investigate this attack and to ensure that violence does not escalate in West Bank, because that will create a nightmare for Israel and also for the negotiators and the peacemakers. So I personally believe that it is so important to ensure that there is security and stability in the West Bank, so that peace can be finally achieved in this region.
Absolutely, sir. With that, Professor Gururatna, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your insights with us on NewsX World today. On that note, viewers, we're shifting focus to further developments, this time in Syria. We're now learning that in southern Syria, 13 people have been killed in an Israeli raid, with Damascus now accusing Israel of a criminal attack in a village. Israel has stated its troops came under fire during an operation to arrest militants. Now, according to the Israeli army, military fire during the raid in the village of Beit Jin left 6 soldiers wounded, out of which 3 are currently in a severe condition. The Israeli military has stated that its troops had launched an operation to detain suspects belonging to Jamaat Islamiyah, which is a Lebanese Sunni Islamist group which fired rockets at Israel from Lebanon during the Gaza war, accusing them of involvement in quote-unquote terror plots. The IDF has also described the raid as part of routine operations in the area in recent months. With us on the broadcast is Major General A.K. Siva, geostrategic expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. Israel, of course, apart from Lebanon and West Bank, it's now also carrying out operations in southern Syria. 13 people have been killed in this raid. The IDF claims that it's lost 6 of its soldiers. What do you make at the outset of this particular action in southern Syria? We've seen, with the ouster of Bashar al-Assad and al-Sharana coming to power, there's been an outreach by the West as well to sort of normalize ties with Syria. In context of that, how do you view the Israeli action?
Yeah, see, 2-3 issues stand out. One is, as far as Israel is concerned, Israel has taken a Golan Heights, which overlooks Syria, and thereafter, when Assad government fell, that is the time they have gone slightly toward the north and made a buffer zone. They always felt that there are certain militant groups which are operating from Syria, and they are trying to now dislodge or trying to create problem in Golan Heights. Now, what has happened is, in this case, that it is known phenomena that Jamaat Ismailiyah group, which is the Lebanese Sunni militant group, is the one which was also supporting the Hezbollah from Lebanon when they were fighting against Israel. So naturally, as far as Israel is concerned, it has a concrete information that there are certain villages where Jamia Ismailia is still very, very operative, and they wanted to strike on that. And that is how they have basically strike on the basic center of this Jamia Ismailia, and where more than about 10 people have been killed, precisely about 13. But there is the other side of the story where the Syria is claiming that those who are killed are civilians, and they have nothing to do with the militancy. The United Nations has also condemned that. This will be always there. There will be a counter, version given by the Syria. But what is the fact? The fact is, remember one thing, that whether it is Hezbollah or Houthi rebel or Hamas, they were all proxies of Iran, and the Iran was basically supplying them weapons and financial aid and all. And this weapon route to Hezbollah was basically from Iran to Iraq, and then to Syria, and then to Lebanon. After the Syria has now Assad government has fallen down, Ahmed al-Sara has taken over. He himself was earlier a militant. Now there is a stoppage in the sense, because it is under influence of US, that route has been blocked now. There is no doubt the route of coming from Iran to Iraq to Syria to Lebanon, where the number of weapons used to come, that is blocked. But there are pockets of some militant group which are still operating in Sahara, which are not in the interest of Israel, and that's how the Israel is attacking them. And these basically a Lebanese Sunni militant group, Jamia Ismailia, is a very deadly terrorist group, and I feel Israel will always strike wherever they find their national interest is being compromised, wherever they find the militant, because they have made up their mind they will clean Gaza. There is no doubt that though the 20-piece plan has been already accepted, but they are making sure that the Hamas, which are remnants of Hamas, they also complete. They have a control in West Bank. They are now striking against Hezbollah in Lebanon, and also Houthi rebel in Yemen. So the point is, as far as Israel is concerned, it is very clear. They will not allow any militant group to operate in especially area about 500 to 600 kilometers all around Israel, whether it is Sunni militant group or Shia. I think that is the philosophy of Israel. And basically, Syria want a peace with Israel, because Ahmed al-Sara want a peaceful resolution, because United States is playing a role of mediator, because Ahmed al-Sara is under the influence of US now. They have 2-3 meetings, but at the same time, wherever Israel will find that the militant groups are operating in Syria, they will never hesitate to strike again.
Indeed, you've spoken about, the fact that the US has been mediating. In fact, when al-Shara did visit the White House earlier this month, there were a lot of murmurs that were being made that, a strategic deal between Syria and Israel could materialize. That, of course, did not take place. And there were some rather public statements that were also made by al-Shara with regards to Israel. But we do know that back channel negotiations are taking place with the US being involved. In your assessment, when could we see a strategic deal being chalked out in the upcoming months?
It seemingly looks that in a near future, you will find some sort of ceasefire as well as a deal will be signed between Syria and Israel, because this is basically brokered by the US, and US is putting a pressure. Because remember that when Assad government was there, that is the time when Syria was totally against Israel, and that is where the weapon used to be smuggled from Iran, Iraq and Syria. Now after Ahmed al-Sara has come, he wants to improve the relationship with Israel, and US also want both Syria and Israel to have negotiation. The back channel diplomacy is already going on. To me, it looks like that in very near future, they will sign some sort of a contract wherein both the sides will understand, but Israel will like to have some sort of a buffer zone between Golan Heights and Syria.
All right, so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking our time and, of course, sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. On that note, viewers, we're tracking further updates. We're now learning that Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem has welcomed Pope Leo XIV's upcoming visit to Lebanon, announcing that the Iran-backed proxy group will deliver a letter to the pontiff Qasim has stated that members of Hezbollah's political council would present the letter to the papal embassy and that it will also be made public. The Pope is set to arrive in Lebanon tomorrow for a 3-day visit following his trip to Turkey. His itinerary includes an open-air mass in Beirut expected to draw 120,000 devotees and an inter-religious meeting in the city center. Qasim has expressed hopes that the Pope's visit will help spread peace in Lebanon and end, as he claims, Israeli aggression and support the oppressed. This visit comes at a critical time as Lebanon continues to face pressure following last year's ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel. On that note, viewers, it's a wrap on Gulf today. We will continue to track all of these updates very, very closely, but we're dipping into a quick short break. Stay tuned on News.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Nearly 100 people are dead and dozens are missing after torrential rains and landslides linked to Cyclone Ditwa have devastated 20 districts across Sri Lanka, leaving nearly 200,000 people affected. The European Union says that a high-profile corruption probe in Ukraine shows Kyiv's anti-graft agencies are working after investigators carried out searches targeting President Volodymyr Zelensky's top aide. Britain says talks to join the European Union's defence fund SAFE has broken down in a major setback to a much-wanted post-Brexit reset of relations aimed at strengthening the continent's defence. The United Nations states that the killing of 2 Palestinians who were shot dead in the West Bank while seemingly surrendering to Israeli forces was an apparent summary execution. US President Donald Trump announces a sweeping set of immigration proposals. He vows to permanently pause migration from all third world countries and launch what he described as reverse migration to restore order in the United States. Russian President Putin meets his Hungarian Prime Minister Orban in Moscow, praising his stance on Ukraine and suggesting Budapest could host talks with the US on the conflict. Orban stresses that Hungary will continue relying on Russian energy despite European Union and US pressure. Donald Trump says the United States will very soon begin action on land to stop suspected Venezuelan drug traffickers. They will soon expand operations beyond maritime strikes amid rising tension and increased US military deployments in the region. Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte will remain in detention at the International Criminal Court after appeals judges reject a request to release him on health grounds. And viewers, let's move on to the top focus story here at World Report. Sri Lanka is reeling from one of its worst weather disasters in years, with nearly 100 people reported dead and dozens still missing as of Friday evening amid relentless rains and strong winds linked to Cyclone Ditwa. Now, the storm is tracking north and northwestward toward Tamil Nadu, while Sri Lanka faces widespread flooding, landslides, and severe infrastructure damage. 20 of the island's 25 districts have been badly hit, affecting over 60,000 families and nearly 200,000 people under a national red alert. The eastern districts of Ampara, Batticaloa, and Trincomalee, along with parts of the central and UVA provinces, including tourist hubs like Kandy and Nuwara Elia, are among the worst impacted. Entire communities have been stranded with flooded roads, collapsing slopes, and harrowing reports of vehicles and families swept away. Schools are closed and government offices shut except for essential services. President Anura Kumara Dissanayake has urged MPs to coordinate relief efforts. We now welcome G. Kumar Chittambaram, who is the Vice General Secretary of Association of Small Medium Tourism Enterprises in Sri Lanka. He is also the Managing Director at Travel Wind Holiday in Sri Lanka. I welcome you and thank you for joining us here at NewsX World. Well, firstly, what is the situation really on the ground? We have some reports of the devastation that has been caused by the floods, but you're there in Colombo. Please help us with the perspective with somebody who's there watching it all in person.
Good evening to you all of you all. Well, I was not only from the Colombo, because I was basically yesterday I was in Kandy and the hill stations, and I saw the trauma and the devastations of the damage has been happened in the most part of the Sri Lanka, especially the hill country area, and also the north central provinces, and the central provinces is badly affected with the landslides, and the lot of places the roads was really damaged, as well as the bridges was all gone, washed away in certain part of Sri Lanka. So the traffic the transportation mode has a bit of a standstill in certain places. Now, I mean, the main cities connectivity is also a bit of a risk, because of the most of the roads networks has been flooded with more the tank waters and the river waters and the canal waters has been flowing. So the government of Sri Lanka and the we call it Road Development Authority and the armed forces and the police people got involved and clean up these the respective area, and trying to bring back the traffic movements and the vehicular movements to get back into the normal position. So the people are not traveling at the moment. I mean, the general people are just stuck at the moment. They are not making any travel around in the country. But the essential services needed to be transportation, things to be done. So that has to be happening. But mainly the vegetables and things like that comes from the hill station. That's got standstill at this stage at the moment. So the petroleum and the social stuffs are already distributing and going on. So government is the president and the disaster management team and the forces got involved, and they are given the task to help and especially to evacuate the people where the earthslides happening. So the people have been moved out from that certain area and bring down to the safest place, and keep them with the food, and lodging is will be provided by the government agents at this stage.
right. How much time do you think the rescue operations are going to take, and in how long will roads and infrastructure be restored? Also, if you can tell us about the immediate needs of the people.
Well, at this stage, at the moment, the shelter is the most important. Safe shelter, that's most important. And the government is doing that, like they're bringing them into the welfare places and the schools and the closest community hall and the most safely, and especially the main sanitations and the accommodations and the hygienic things have been looked at by the healthcare, and they're doing that. So mostly, it's like the most dangerous places only they identified and evacuating and bring them back also. Some of the areas are like very still dangerous. I mean, like especially the hill countries and also the low level areas also, because of the water level from the rivers has been flown up, and that the river is now, there is a red alert is given closer to the Ganga of Kalani, which is come from the hill and joining in closer to the Colombo city area. So this called Kalani. So that surroundings those areas also been informed that evacuate because the water flow is high rising, and also that's concern on the Colombo city. I mean, it's not in the city, but like that build the river bed is going out about like 8 to 10 kilometers away from the city. So the surrounding of that area, people being evacuated and asked to move out because the water flow is so high. So the government is doing at this stage to make sure that people's safety and keep on the awareness. But very unfortunate incident, because in most part of the twin, as per the electricity board of Sri Lanka is announced, nearly about 25% to 30% of the people don't have electricity at this stage. So they cannot restore it at this for the next 24 hours because of the wind, and a lot of trees are falling onto the main line, and they just especially in like in Kandy and Matale, Badul area has been, the electricity has been so there is not much of communication is happening on the mobiles also, because people cannot do the charging and things like that. But like the mainly for the essential item like hospitals and the ambulance services, fire sites, all those places and the supermarkets, they have their own generator and they are generating the electricity at this stage. And the government is also supplying for the hospitals.
All right, thank you for joining us for now and helping us understand the situation there and the need of the hour. And viewers, with that, we shift our focus now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that his chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, has resigned from his post after anti-corruption officials raided his residence and offices earlier in the day. Now, about a dozen officials from National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutors Office conducted the search before dawn in Kyiv's highly secure government quarter, the agency said in a joint statement. The development is likely to further weaken Zelensky at a pivotal moment for Ukraine. Keith Vaz, who's the former Britain minister, now joins us here into the discussion. All right. Thank you, Mr. Vaz, for joining us here on NewsX World. Now, firstly, how do you see the meeting between the Hungary Prime Minister and Russia?
Well, I think this is a surprise development, but there has always been a strong move to make sure corruption is removed from Ukraine. So I'm not surprised at the recent story that you mentioned. In respect to the bigger picture, what we are waiting for is a meaningful meeting between Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Volodymyr Zelensky. That is the only way this matter is going to be resolved. And the Ukrainians have made it very, very clear that they are not going to concede any land. If they do, it means that Russia can just, or any other country, can grab anyone else's land, and at the end of the day, you don't have to give it back. So we're waiting for that. There is a peace plan on the table. And it's important that that is discussed as quickly as possible.
All right. I also want to take some breaking news development that we're learning about the resignation of. Can I have my guest back into the discussion here? Mr. Vaz, I wanted to ask you about the resignation of Yermak, Zelensky's aide, who's quit amid the anti-graft charges and prosecution of him. Do you think this is really weakening Ukraine's cause, and if it's going to completely destroy Zelensky's efforts?
It is going to weaken the cause, because when countries like the UK and America give money to Ukraine, they want it spent on Ukraine. They don't want it to be involved in any corruption scandals or any problems. So what the president seems to be doing is he wants to clean out the stable. He wants to make sure that there is no hint that any of the money is ending up in the wrong hands. So on the one hand, of course, when it is announced, when you have your chief of staff being arrested, this is a very serious matter. But on the other hand, there's only one person who can bring this war to an end. That is Vladimir Zelensky, working with Putin, President Putin and President Trump. So there can be no question that he should be removed himself from what is happening. He's clearing out the stable. People have said for a long time that there is an issue of corruption in Ukraine. And the fact that the police in Ukraine have made an arrest of this very, very important individual, the chief of staff to the president, is a very important consideration.
All right, Mr. Vaz, do you think the statements that have also come from Zelensky are now much of a damage control attempt?
Well, of course, he wants to show that he is acting strongly to root out corruption. I'm sure this is not going to be the only case we're going to hear about. His eyes needs to be, however, on that big picture. There is a peace plan that is on the table. That plan needs to include the president of Russia and the president of the United States, because the United States are funding this war. Without them, we can't have peace. And without President Putin, we can't have peace. So all three have got to sit together at a table. I think this will happen. You know, I'm not one of the greatest fans of Donald Trump, but one of the things he has done is he's shown incredible leadership. Whether he's right or wrong, he makes a decision. And I think that's what people want. And as this war limbers on and people die every single day, Donald Trump has made it very clear he wants peace. And this is the right road forward. So clearing out the stable, making sure corruption is removed, is an essential part of that peace process. Yes, it will be damaged today and tomorrow, but then after that, the big picture is peace in Ukraine.
All right, do stay on with us, Mr. Vaz, as we have some more inputs to give our viewers. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban said that he hoped for ongoing peace proposals to result in a ceasefire and lasting peace following a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Orban added that Hungary has not given up any area of cooperation with Russia, signaling continued engagement despite growing pressure from the European Union and the US to reduce reliance on Russian energy. Listen into what he said.
El fogom mondani önnek azt, amit a korábbi találkozóinkon is elmondtam, hogy Magyarország érdekelt a békében.
Скажу также то, что говорил вам на нашей предыдущей встрече. Венгрия заинтересована в мире.
És hogy nagyon reméljük, hogy az asztalon fekvő békejavaslatok elvezetnek a fegyverszünethez és békét. És nem is adtunk fel az együttműködésből semmilyen területet, semmilyen külső nyomásra.
In fact, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz also said that it is increasingly urgent to use frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. Speaking at a press conference in Berlin with the Slovenian Prime Minister Robert Golob, Merz emphasized that Ukraine needs European backing as the Russian attacks intensify and winter sets in. He expressed hope that the European Union could reach a joint solution soon. Last month, European Union leaders attempted to finalize a plan to use 140 billion euros in frozen Russian sovereign assets as a loan for Kyiv, but the effort failed to gain Belgium's support. Let's listen into what Merz said.
wir versuchen, eine gemeinsame Lösung in der Europäischen Union hinzubekommen. Ich habe ja vor dem letzten Rat den Vorschlag gemacht, mit einem solchen Darlehen auf die Vermögenswerte Russlands, die Ukraine auch für die nächsten 3 Jahre zu finanzieren. Ich sehe die Notwendigkeit, dies zu tun, immer dringlicher. Die Ukraine braucht unsere Unterstützung. Die russischen Angriffe nehmen zu. Der Winter steht bevor oder wir sind im Winter. Und insofern hoffe ich, dass wir hier zu einer gemeinsamen Lösung in der Europäischen Union kommen. Die Androhung von Russland, die ist uns nicht unbekannt. Das ist ein wiederkehrendes Ritual. Wir lassen uns davon nicht beeindrucken. Wir müssen alles tun, um wirklich zu einem Ende dieses Krieges zu tun. Und dafür ist der Einsatz der russischen Vermögenswerte aus meiner Sicht heraus wirklich ein angemessenes und richtiges Instrument. Aber noch einmal, wir suchen nach einer gemeinsamen Lösung mit dem belgischen Staat, auch mit Euroclear, damit dies wirklich auch im großen Konsens in der Europäischen Union beschlossen wird.
Let's welcome back Mr. Keith Vaz, the former Britain Minister, into the discussion here. He joins us live from London. Thank you for staying on with us, Mr. Vaz. Now, clearly there's a divide within the European Union over the use of frozen Russian sovereign assets, while there's Germany that's urging those assets to be used. Belgium is warning against it. Do you think the use of these assets is even viable to begin with, and if it's even a possibility?
Well, the assets have been there for some time. Personally, I'm against the seizure of assets of an individual or a country where there has not been due process. Passing a resolution in the European Parliament is not due process. I can see why Chancellor Merkel wants to use this money and these assets, but actually they're not his. They belong to the Russian people and the Russian government. But of course, Europe is running out of money.